And now, the Lowe Post.
Welcome to the Lowe Post podcast early on a Friday morning where we had a game so good, so important, that old man me stayed up till 1 a.m. to watch the whole goddamn thing from start to finish. I knew I was going to be able to sleep until I knew the result, and it lived up to the hype. Boston with an improbable late rally to get it just close enough against the Denver Nuggets in a potential final preview to remind you, yeah, I guess we should trust the defending champs and the best player in basketball a little bit more down the stretch than Boston, who has now lost 2 in a row. How improbable that both of these teams came into this colossal matchup off a loss. The Nuggets sweep the season series against the Celtics. Both games coming down to crunch time. Both games coming down in part to Jason Tatum misses at the end of games. Jokic, just an absolutely majestic triple-double. 32 points, 11 assists, 12 rebounds, 0 turnovers. And Bobby Marks, the story of the game is that Boston, like every other team in the NBA, has no answer. They tried everything. They tried everybody. They tried every scheme. He barbecued chicken, all of it, every single time until the end when they went all the way back to saying, okay, I guess we got to try Porzingis on him again. And what happened down the stretch when they went all the way back to that scheme? Jokic put him in the basket with 1:20 left to put the Nuggets up by 5, and then was going to put him in the basket again. The Celtics swarmed a triple team, and the crazy no-look, what did I just see? Hook pass to Aaron Gordon. It felt like the 19th time that Jokic found Aaron Gordon along the baseline for a dunk, a putback dunk that almost, I think DeAndre Jordan may have had a stroke on the sideline for that putback dunk with 2 minutes left, which came when Jokic put somebody in the basket in single coverage. And then that was more or less the game. Jamal Murray did not play very well. And in fact, a potentially crippling turnover with about 50 seconds left that with Jaylen Brown pressed him on the pick and roll. I don't know why they were even running pick and roll. Just give the ball to Jokic, stole the ball from him. Jaylen Brown, by the way, in a game in which Tatum struggled, 5 of 13, 15 points, 5 turnovers. I think, Bobby, the end of Jason Tatum's MVP candidacy, a candidacy that, as regular listeners of this podcast know, I never really bought into, even though he was my preseason pick for it. He was 5th on my ballot. There had been a burbling momentum, best player, best team, got to be at the top of the ballot. No, that's over. Jokic is going to win the MVP, and if it's not Jokic, it's going to be Shea, I guess, but it's probably going to be Jokic. Jaylen Brown, 41 points, 16 of 29 shooting, 7 of 14 from the line, had that steal that set up the Jason Tatum 3 from the corner on a great touch pass from Derek White that would have given Boston the lead. It missed. Boston was, really, Bobby, it would have been interesting to see if the game would have even been close-ish down the stretch. 105-94 Denver. Jokic gets mauled on a post-up. No call. He starts screaming at the refs, and you don't see Jokic do this as much anymore. Jaylen Brown, meanwhile, marches down for an and one. Tech on Jokic, 4-point play. Lead is suddenly 7. If that's a 2-shot foul and it's Denver by 13, all of this drama may not happen at all, but it happened. And one of the reasons it happened was on the other side. Porzingis, and this is what Oklahoma City was watching, particularly Oklahoma City with the stretch big in Chet Holmgren. Porzingis pick and pop threes were such a problem for Jokic that they put him on Drew Holiday, which is an adjustment that they dabbled in the first game that I've talked about with the Nuggets specifically and Celtics opponents generally. Will we see more teams try to hide their centers on Drew Holiday? And Drew Holiday cooked them and made 2 threes, including a step back corner 3 to cut it to 2. But the story is Jokic and just the execution. He is the preeminent executor of crunch time basketball. He takes your soul. He breaks your scheme. He even had at the end of the third quarter, Bobby, he had that same pass that he had against the Lakers earlier in the season when he gets the ball at the elbow. Somebody sneaks up, a little sneak from the corner. It was Jaylen Brown this time, blind. Jokic can't see him. And somehow Jokic turns around and makes the pass to his guy. KCP hits a 3. Just an awesome, awesome performance from Jokic. And really, it was really him and Aaron Gordon and Peyton Watson who was fantastic off the bench, who were the only Nuggets to like play super well in this game. MPJ had a couple of nice moments, but just 9 points. Murray was just okay. 5 turnovers, including that one down the stretch. I don't know. My biggest takeaway is the obvious one, which is just these teams are very evenly matched. This would be an absolutely incredible final series if we saw it. I'm not super discouraged about any of this. If I'm Boston, I'm not like writing off Jason Tatum as a crunch time player. This dude had a 50 burger in a game 7 last season. He had 40 something in saving their season on the road in Milwaukee in game 6 in 2022. His bona fides, whatever the way you say that, are mostly established. But this was not a good game. But the Celtics, these are very even teams. And in the end, it's just hard to come away with any big takeaway other than they tried everything. They tried single coverage, double coverage. They brought in Horford and tried single coverage with Horford. They tried Drew Holiday down the stretch just to like mess it up. And Jokic was like, no, I'm cool. I'm just going to put that dude in the basket too. And with just a couple of exceptions that we'll talk about, there was just no answer. And no one has found an answer yet. This dude is the best player in the world. And the Nuggets have been my pick to come out of the West all year. And given what happened to Karl-Anthony Towns, which we'll talk about, and we don't know the timetable on that yet. This is fun. This is a fun game, though. Did you like this one? What was your big takeaway?
Well, here a couple of things. When you had asked, you said, "Hey, can you come on the pod and we'll do Denver, Boston, some other games." I got so excited. I even look what I broke out. I broke out note cards.
Yeah,
so and I never really. I usually just use it on my whiteboard, but I got a whole stack of note cards in front of me here as far as just some things that went on. Yeah, listen, when you mentioned Jokic, the Phoenix game, he had 7 turnovers, right? So if that's the Achilles, I guess, as far as making it a little more uncomfortable, it certainly sprayed the ball around. And Phoenix goes on and wins in overtime here. Every possession matters. You feel like every time Denver's when he's on the court, you're going to get a good possession. I mean, that's the reality, whether it be him, whether it be missed shots, whether it be, looks for Peyton Watson, 43 career triple doubles. Is that what the numbers are right now? I saw a stat that came, I think 43 triple doubles with 30 points or more. I mean, which is a remarkable one.
This is like the 11 and 12 column for rebounds and assists is like pedestrian for Jokic in the last 2 weeks. He's had these crazy like 15 and 15 kind of games. But the no turnovers too, as you mentioned, the 7 against Phoenix, none last night. And to the Nuggets' credit, and I'll let you get back to it in a second, they survived the non-Jokic minutes until a little flurry in the fourth quarter. And like they played more or less a playoff rotation. It was Jamal Murray and 4 bench guys with Zeke Naji spotting in there. And I love little thing, Zeke Naji. I like when you roll to the basket. You don't have to pop for 3 every time. You got a roll bucket last night. And then Aaron Gordon came in at the backup 5 in the fourth quarter. If they just survive, if they tread water, if they're just their heads barely above water, some water's getting in their nose, they got to cough or something. That's all they got to do.
2 things, ending the quarter on 11-4 run, the half on an 11-4 run, Denver did to give him separation. Then certainly Porzingis comes out and hits those 2 threes in the third to get it going. And as you said, what I love the most, and Jokic is as good as it gets here. I love that Michael Malone basically was like, you know what? I'm going to roll out Christian Brown, Peyton Watson, Zeke Naji, with Reggie Jackson and Jamal Murray. And I think with Murray a +3 in minutes, and basically what that showed me was, and we'll see what happens when we get to the playoffs, like who can I count on, right? Like who can I count on in big moments when maybe we have an injury down the stretch, or maybe something happens in a game and we get foul trouble. Who can I count on in a big moment here? And Porter's been really good this year, but in last night, I had a more of a comfort level with Peyton Watson on the floor.
What did it for you, Bobby? Was it when he jumped over Nikola Jokic like he was in the dunk contest, except he was playing defense? Was it that? Oh my god!
It was
this guy has the loudest shot blocks he blocks a lot of shots, and they are all like dialed up to 11.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, how active is he on defense? I liked, and it's funny because then he settled on a three and it led out to a transition. And Michael Malone went crazy on it. That he attacked the basket, right? Like he had the one baseline move and boom, boom, right off the spring there. But I just like how comfortable he is out there. And for a guy that and this is a funny story. I was thinking this last night. When we did the draft, the night of the draft, when Peyton was in the draft, I had said, who's the I think Cassidy was host. Who's the one guy that might surprise you getting drafted tonight? And I said Peyton Watson. And Richard gave me such a hard time. He's like, Peyton Watson, the guy averaged 2 points in college and 7 minutes a game and all this. I'm like, yeah, but I don't care. It doesn't matter. Like upside. We're Denver's picking, right? Like upside picks. And I think now where you see from a developmental standpoint, and that's why, I thought, Christian Brown had some good moments in the first half. Like these guys are going to mean something down the stretch. And, when you're writing off season stuff and you're looking at it, like that's my big question. And that's been the big question. Like how much of a temptation is there to get away from your younger players if there's some shortcomings this year? And right now, I mean, they've been really certainly Watson was really good. And as you said, like the start the second quarter plus minutes. To start the end of the third quarter plus minutes here. There was never a point where basically you had to say, oh, we're going to have to extend Jokic's minutes. We're going to have to extend Murray's minutes here, that you were allowed to keep that group out there and you had a 7-point lead or a 10-point lead there.
I mean, look, Denver did nothing at the trade deadline. They did not upgrade with a veteran off the bench. And that was a line in the sand from Calvin Booth. So we're riding with these young dudes. We drafted them for a reason. We thought they fit, that they'd be ready. And we are not going to stunt their experience and their development in this one playoff run because we have eyes on the next 4 long playoff runs. And we think all these dudes can be contributors. And then you throw in the money questions that are going to start to emerge. The other thing on Watson is we saw this lineup a little bit last night. I've been waiting for them to try it more. It's the starters with Watson in for Michael Porter Jr. And it's a lineup you really would only use, to get out in transition and maybe to protect the lead late in games, although I think it can be more effective than that. It's only played 12 minutes the entire season. I really couldn't believe that. I feel like I've glimpsed it here or there, and I expected it to be around 40 minutes or 50 minutes. So I've got my eye on that. And as far as Jokic, you know what? Let's go a couple of things. Number one, for all the belly aching that there's going to be about Boston in crunch time, and again, they had this shot to win the game, to take the lead from Tatum, and it didn't go in. And Tatum had not a great game. They won the fourth quarter by 4. Their offensive rating in the fourth quarter was 116, which is fine, which is like league average. So they got back in the game late behind a flurry of Drew Holiday stuff. And Jaylen Brown was incredible, minus the free throws. And like, you just can't go 16 of 25 at the foul line against the Denver Nuggets. You can't do it on the road. Boston only took 38 threes out of 91 shot attempts, which is below their average. And Stan Van Gundy mentioned this on the broadcast. Denver, I think, is allowed the second fewest threes, or at least as a share of shot attempts in the NBA. And considering the way their base defense plays, which is if you're going to put Jokic in the pick and roll on 75% of the plays, we're putting 2 on the ball up high, and we're playing 3 on 4 behind the play. That defense typically exposes open 3-point shots. The fact that they allow so few and allowed so few against Boston is really a tribute to how well they've mastered that scheme. And Denver very quietly is up to 9th in points allowed per possession, 9th in defensive efficiency. And this was a good defensive game. Honestly, by both teams, Denver's offensive rating was about league average for the game. Boston's was well below league average. Denver is sort of getting into gear for the playoffs on defense, and they held Boston in check for most of the game. Boston's fourth quarter offense was actually, once the Drew Holiday with Jokic on him assignment became the assignment, their fourth quarter offense kind of took off a little bit late in the game. But the free throws hurt, the turnovers hurt. Shaky game for Jamal Murray, by the way, other than the How about the buzzer beater at the end of the first quarter that people will all forget in a close game like this? Was it a bank shot? He bank in a 30-footer? I didn't love nor did Stan on the broadcast, the three that Jamal Murray took with 1:45 left in the game at like
quick
20 on
three.
the shot clock.
Yep.
After Jason Tatum, by the way, split a pair of free throws, another sort of crunch time for him. But
Well, it's going to be interesting too with Tatum. And I know what the narrative will be, certainly. And you hit a great point. Like big games, playoff games, he's come through. And and we get the stats from our group, every morning, 32% in clutch and 32% in clutch moments, basically bottom, 27th out of 28. I wonder, he hurt his hand on that one play. And I wonder if listen, I'm not making excuses for him. Because he hurt his hand, and then the next play he kind of missed a short. I think he missed something at another one at the rim, whether it be a kind of a runner at the rim. But you can look at bench, 28-10, as far as from bench points, minus 18 for Boston here. But at the end of the day, listen, you're down 2 and you had an open 3 to win to put yourself up 1 on the road. So I think there were some good things. I thought Joe Mazzulla tried a lot of different things, right? You tried Xavier Tillman and Al Horford, right? Like, it's great. Like you're looking at these different lineups and you're like, when was and you look at Tillman, when has he played with Horford before? And basically he's played like 24 minutes since he's been traded for in Boston here. So I do think they tried, they threw out Peyton Pritchard a little bit here. They did to try to mix some things up a little bit. You as you said, like, we basically went Porzingis at the end on Jokic, and then you tried to double with Holiday, and that led to, basically, offensive.
This is the problem. You can't double him. You cannot double him. There were a couple times they tried to double late and from behind, and on most of them, it was too late. He was at the basket. If he's within 8 feet of the basket, your only recourse left is pray that he misses. There's just nothing you can do. And then when they doubled traditionally, there was only a couple of times when they did this because you can't do it. When he can see it coming, when he has his back to the basket and you're coming at him, it was just bam, bam, wide open corner 3 for KCP. He missed one late, but you just can't do it. And look, the Heat did this in the finals and discovered that the Celtics never go zone, and so it's not an option for them. You can't go zone against them. You just think the most deadly zone player ever. It's just the greatest passing big man, and like he's starting to get toward greatest passer ever kind of conversations. To me, that's going to still be Magic Johnson, but whatever.
He threw a pass. He threw a pass last night, and it turned into a missed field goal. But he threw a pass, and it felt like it went through the back of Derek White's skull. In the corner, there was a corner pass where he basically threw it. It felt like it was one of those like superimposed matrix things where it went right in, and Derek White had his hand up, and it went right. It's like he just knows where to put the ball.
The hook pass to Gordon, like it says something that he's earned the benefit of the doubt. That everybody, including the announcers, immediately concluded, oh, that was actually a pass. Because for any other player in the league, there would have been like, wait, what was that? Was that a pass? Like, what was, by the way, Derek White, 7 points, 0 of 4 from 3. And I think part of the reason why Tatum had a so-so game was he just wasn't involved enough. Like Jason Tatum, and part of the Jaylen Brown's cooking, whatever, but they kind of lost the thread a little bit of continuity on offense. And there was just a lot of possessions where Jason Tatum was doing nothing. And when the Celtics are humming, you see the Jason Tatum, Derek White 2-man game every other trip, at least. Sometimes it's on the ball. Very often it's a split action off the ball. And when you don't see that, it's a tell that Boston is a little bit out of rhythm in their heads. You know when you didn't see it? When they blew a 21-point lead in Cleveland the other day in what was a disastrous loss that I will just chalk up to, look, they've won 11 games in a row. They're on the road, whatever. I just didn't see enough, like, forget the miss at the end, forget the turnovers, which were bad. I just didn't see enough of like Jason Tatum doing stuff in the game, particularly when Jaylen Brown was out of the game. Jaylen Brown did play 41 minutes, so he played most of the game. But, again, like I'm not going to overreact and be like, Boston has some crisis problem. Like, they played okay in the fourth quarter last night in Denver at altitude against the best player in the league who was on fire the whole game. They almost won the game. They're ahead by 1 million in the East. And until I see Milwaukee put it together, and look, I called myself the turd in the punch bowl last week on TV when I said, can I see Milwaukee's defense like do this against better teams? And then they did. They had a couple of nice wins, and then they go on the road in Golden State and got trounced. By the way, we'll talk about Curry's injury later. Very bad timing for the Warriors, obviously. And like we still haven't seen Middleton. Middleton gave an interview to the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel yesterday about how this is the worst ankle injury he's ever had. It's taken him longer than ever to recover. Like he stepped on Kevin Durant's foot. It was a fluke. I get that it was a fluke. This is not like a chronic Chris Middleton injury thing or whatever. I just need to see it until I believe any of these teams can touch Boston in the playoffs. New York is decimated. Philly is decimated. Cleveland is now missing Mobley and Mitchell for a little bit. So I'm not panicking, but these two games, it really came down to like the best player is on Denver, and he is the best crunch time taker of souls in the world.
Yeah, I mean, you hit it right on the head. I mean, as far as listen, these haven't been two blowouts. I mean, it's come down to basically, well, this one was a little bit different. Really, the Tatum miss came, as far as last possession here. And I think if Boston was in the Western Conference and it was a bloodbath here, then I'd be like, wait a minute, like, then I'm concerned with getting past Denver in a conference finals or some of these other teams here. But the Eastern Conference allows you to kind of figure things out. As you said, they had won 11 games before that the Cleveland game. There's nobody that's going to catch them. Every team behind them is a mash unit. You're going to probably get a combination of Chicago or, I don't know, India, whoever the eighth seed would be, maybe Indiana if they fall back there. Who Chicago's actually played pretty decently. They had a big win.
I'm gonna shout them. I'm gonna shout them. They're my shout out team, Bobby. I told you to pick a shout out team. They're gonna be my shout out team.
So yeah, I am not overly concerned though. But at the end, the narrative, as I said, will be the Tatum in the clutch. It's unfair based on his playoff resume here. But I do think there is some type of a little bit of a formula to how they can beat Denver, but it's just a matter of kind of executing down the stretch.
Well, both these teams have got to get there first, right? Like Oklahoma City is going to have a say. Minnesota, knock on wood, is going to have a say. The Clippers, who had a really gutty win in Houston.
I thought it was the best win of the year. I really did.
For
and
the
I
Clippers?
know, the Clippers, just based on listen, they haven't played good at all since the All-Star break. They had a bad loss. The other night, in Milwaukee without Giannis, and they're on the ropes, man. They're on the ropes in Houston against the feisty Houston team, with Van Vliet and Sengun, and they basically kind of gutted it out. Like it was a gutty win down the stretch here. I thought it was. I found it funny, they go hack a Plumlee. I know we're going to talk about some other things. They go hack a Plumlee, misses 2 free throws, and then they forget to do it again. And then
Sengun tried to do it with under 2 minutes left in the game, and got lucky they didn't call it, and then got lectured by both Udoka and Van Vliet. And you could read Sengun's lips saying 2 minutes, 2 minutes. I don't think he knew the rule, and they got lucky they didn't call it.
I know,
but I'm glad you brought that win up because I watched that game the other night.
Yeah.
And I thought it was an important win for the Clippers. It felt important, and it felt like in the second half they found their pace again on offense. They started running their actions with more purpose. They started running, period, in transition when they got chances. I thought that was an important win. But back to Denver, Boston for a second. I just want to read you a couple stats. Jokic had 13 post-ups last night. He had 16 in the first game against Boston. Those are two of his top 11 volume post-touch games of the year. I actually think their trump card in almost any matchup is just post him more. Like get him up to 20. I know he doesn't want to play that way, but there's just when you're getting in the mud and you're facing an elite defensive team who can maybe give Murray some problems, who can whatever, there's just no answer. For the season, the Nuggets are scoring 1.19 points per possession directly out of Jokic post-ups. So that's Jokic shoots or draws a foul or someone shoots one pass away. The whole possession, zoom out, everything that happens after a Jokic post touch, 1.34 points per possession. That's absurdity. It's absolutely ridiculous. Those are both top 10 numbers. and everyone else in the top 10 has like 50 post touches. Jokic has 400. I do want to talk about the Porzingis matchup for Jokic, because that's the test. The test, everyone thinks the test is like a Steph Curry, Draymond Green pick and roll, and that's obviously a test. And Jokic will come out to the level of the screen. He's got to trap Curry. That's hard for the Nuggets. They know how to do that. The real test is a shooting big. The big's shooting is more important for anti-Jokic offense than the point guard shooting or the ball handler shooting. And you saw that last night, where particularly right in the second half, Porzingis hits 2 pick and pop threes in a row. On the first one, they kind of late switch it. The guy's too small for Porzingis, whoever switched. On the second one, and you saw this over and over again, they have the third guy coming from another Celtic player to flash into Porzingis's airspace. And that's death against Boston. Like, he will make the right pass. Derek White missed a wide open 3 out of it. KCP now did get a couple of steals on that extra pass. But and when I mention Oklahoma City, look, I think Denver's better at Oklahoma City. I don't know that Oklahoma City is ready for all that smoke, so to speak, in the playoffs of Jokic and Murray and this just ruthless crunch time crew. But if they remove Giddey from the game and they have all shooters on the floor and Shea, and Jokic has to guard Holmgren, it's going to be a matchup that looks like this, where they try to move Jokic around and put him on different players, and it's a little harder for them. That said, like, Denver's defense was good last night. Porzingis was 9 of 23, 3 of 10 from 3. He wasn't like on fire, and they're going to live with a certain amount of above the break threes from decent to very good shooters, which Porzingis is. But just that was one that I bookmarked. And then this is what I mean by Boston being smart and calculated and losing the thread. 6 minutes to go in the first quarter, they bring in Horford. They bring in Horford right away, like, because for to guard Jokic. And by the way, Horford 2 points, no field goals, 19 minutes. So right away, Denver's like, this is awesome. Horford's in the game. Jokic, you can guard Horford. We can put Michael Porter Jr. on Porzingis. Problem solved. Very first set, they have Horford with Jokic on him, set a down screen for Porzingis to cut to the rim. They have to switch. The screen hits, they have to switch. Jokic is back on Porzingis. That's smart. That's calculated. They did it on purpose. Next action, as soon as that switch happens, Tatum's like, come up and set a screen for me. We're right back into the Tatum Porzingis pick and roll to target Jokic. That first down screen is the kind of action that when Boston's rolling, you see it a lot. It's smart, it's calculated, it's matchup oriented, and it's fast, and it flows into the next one fast. You saw it maybe 1 or 2 other times, and then it disappeared. Like, that's when they lose the thread, so to speak. That's kind of what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a good point. I mean, going back to Porzingis, 2 of 7 from 3. The only 2 threes he made were the 2 to start the third quarter. So, and I thought those kind
You're
of
talking about the second half stats.
Yep. Kind of pre-scripted, like, let's see if we can pull Jokic away from the basket a little bit more. But listen, I think if you're Denver, you'll take 9 for 23 from the field from him.
Absolutely. The first game between the two teams, which I watched, by the way, on a plane back from LA, I had planned my trip so poorly because I did not understand. I should have just stayed an extra night, and the plane Wi-Fi gods smiled upon me, and I got to watch the game. That I rewatched the last 3 minutes of it this morning. That was 101-100 Denver. Derek White misses a wide open corner 3. Tatum misses a transition layup where he kind of bobbles the ball. You can probably remember that. He lost it in midair and tried to lay it in, wanted a foul. Then they foul with 20 seconds left. Aaron Gordon goes 1 out of 2. Denver by 2. Tatum, after the Nuggets use a foul to give, Tatum misses a fadeaway to tie the game. So not a great crunch time experience against the Nuggets for Jason Tatum. But, look, this is why the Nuggets won the championship last year. This dude is ridiculous, and they didn't really play a great game outside of him. This would be a delightful final series. There is a lot to do between now and then. Any other takeaways from this game? No,
I mean, listen, the ability to close games. And I think, we saw it, Saturday with Denver and the Lakers. Lakers certainly not in Boston's, realm. The other night, Tuesday night, I guess, against Phoenix, I thought Denver got tired down the stretch. I know, basically coming back from 20, go up 3, and then basically Durant goes off. and hits the three and then goes into overtime here. But now it's just like, how do we're going to talk about Minnesota in a minute here, but now you got to try to get like a little separation, right? Like these teams, like you look at the standings every morning, it's like they still got 19 losses. It's like they're 19, 20, it's like there's the four teams with the Clips and OKC and Minnesota, and we'll see where the Timberwolves go here. I think they'll be fine in that regard. You got to try to get some separation here.
Yeah, there's no way Minnesota falls below fourth. I mean, and like they have a 2-game cushion on fourth, and they won last night in their first game since the Karl-Anthony Towns injury and planned surgery was revealed. Woj reported he's going to have surgery to repair his meniscus. Will be reevaluated in 4 weeks. Reevaluated. People think return.
No.
Reevaluated is not return. And Woj said we'll be back early in the Western Conference playoffs. It's unclear what that means. I just wanted a couple small, just little fun takeaways from this game before we leave it, because I luxuriated in it so much.
Yeah.
They took Peyton Watson out of the game with about 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter.
Did you think he was going to finish, or you knew Porter was coming back?
No,
in?
I thought he might finish.
Yeah.
I was curious. I had in my notes, is he going to close the game? ?
Yeah.
And the crowd gives him a great ovation. Awesome moment. By the way, tons of Celtics fans there. But the crowd gives Peyton Watson an ovation. Jamal Murray here is on the court guarding the inbounder as Boston is waiting to inbound the ball. Here's the ovation and just starts clapping along with the crowd and like egging the crowd on. It's a little thing. I just think that's awesome. Like that's the co-star player, never been an all-star team, but that will be rectified hopefully at some point. He's obviously an all-star level player, all-time playoff crunch time killer at this point, or at least in recent NBA history. Recognizing in the run of the game almost, hey, I'm going to take a moment to add to the volume on applause for this guy. Second year guy, didn't play much last year. Massive game, massive moment. The entire basketball world is watching. And the second thing, speaking of the Boston fans, he's parsed it out carefully. He hasn't used it in a while. I'm so glad that we had the sequel of Michael Malone saying, "Take that L with you on the way out, baby." I just we need one more of those this year, and that's it. You can't overuse it, but this was a moment to use it. Tons of green. The green is always noticeable, right? Like it's one of those colors like when they're in your house, it's very obvious that they're in your house. They're loud. They're chanting, "Let's go Celtics." They got their hats on backwards. Their Tatum jerseys. Everyone's going crazy. Oh, there's a Bird jersey, a McHale jersey. Take that L with you on the way out, baby. Okay, Carl.
Listen, it was an NBA Finals game. And here's the other thing. Here's my other takeaway. Can we put the whistles away on these quick tees too? I mean,
well, Jokic
deserved it.
But the other thing is he was right. I always wonder what should the recompense be if you're right? I guess what it should be is you shouldn't get fined. You should get it rescinded. But in the moment of the game, I guess you got to call it. But yeah, there were a couple. Who else got a quick?
Gordon got one from the bench. There was another.
If you get a tee from the bench,
Porzingis got one.
Here's what the criteria should be. If you're going to tee somebody up from the bench, we need a jury that's like, what this person said is so objectively over the line offensive. Other than that, I just don't I don't care what you're saying on the bench. Just let the game go on.
I think it was more of him coming on the court too.
Okay.
So.
Well, look, you can't have that. That New Orleans Miami scuffle got not that there was anything close to that, but that got a little scary. That got a little scary for a second.
But Chicago got fortunate the other night against Utah. Up one.
And is it John Collins something? And he put his hands on an opposing.
Yeah,
I guess you can. I guess you can. I mean, there was a scrum, but it was Chris Fleming, and he kind of put his hands around his neck. And Nikola Vucevic, I missed this until someone tweeted, picked up a cell phone that was on the court somehow. The first cell phone incident that I can remember in an NBA game or practice since Ben Simmons had one in his sweatpants pocket. Speaking of Ben Simmons, let's go to the injury brigade that we have to get to. That's headlined by Towns. We'll start there in a second, but I just want to go through them. Ben Simmons is out for the season. Yep. Back impingement. It's looking more and more like it's just over. Like that the line of demarcation is going to be the pass to Thibault. And there just isn't much to say. The Nets traded, I will say it again, Karis LeVert, Jared Allen, 3 first-round picks and 4 swaps for James Harden. Then when James Harden decided, this is a mess. Can I get out of here? Can I go somewhere else? Can I meet Daryl Morey on the tarmac and give his big puffy jacket a hug like we're in the Shawshank Redemption? The Nets received, now again, 3 first-round picks, 4 swaps, 2 quality young players out in for Harden, Ben Simmons, Andre Drummond, Seth Curry, and 2 first-round picks, one of which became a bottom 10 first-round pick last season. That is a 2-pronged disaster. And I'm not really even sure whose fault it is. Like, you obviously knew Ben Simmons was a distressed asset. You saw the pass. You saw the holdout. You knew that there was whatever the holdout, whatever the right terminology is. He was not playing for the Sixers and did not want to play for the Sixers after Doc Rivers ran him over 14 times with a bus. So you knew that something was amiss. Probably knew that there were some health issues that might have to be addressed. He's had at least one procedure. I don't remember where and on what since then. Mm-hmm. But Ben Simmons turning into a 0 is setting back your organization years. And when he played, and there, to me, I just have no idea. People ask me about Ben Simmons all the time. Like, what do you think? When is he going to play? Like, I just am in like wake me up when he plays territory. Like, if he plays, I'm happy and surprised and will want to watch the game. He's not good anymore. And the Simmons-Claxton pairing is a complete non-starter. They can't score any points when they're on the floor. And it's just a disaster. And there's no way to put it other than that and get well soon. Other injuries. Tari Eason's out for the season. That stinks. Josh Richardson's out for the season. That stinks. LeBron James turned his ankle or hurt his ankle or felt soreness in his ankle the other day. And the Lakers lost to the Kings, where, by the way, they looked like on the perimeter, they're playing at a completely different speed than the Sacramento Kings. Austin Reeves had absolutely no shot guarding De'Aaron Fox, was drawn completely dead. Massive win for the Kings. Massive win. The Lakers really needed to sweep their remaining 2 games against the Kings to try to climb out of the 10-9 bracket into the 8-7 bracket. The Kings are now 4 games up on the Lakers in the loss column. Who was I talking about? Oh, LeBron. Yeah, LeBron. Who was I talking about? LeBron. Victor Wembanyama turned his ankle the other day against Houston when Alper and Şengün just barbecued him over and over again on the way to 45 points. He missed last night's game. We'll see about him. And in an injury that could be quite consequential, Steph Curry rolled his ankle last night in what ended up being a very close loss to the Cardiac Bulls, who just win every close game somehow. And it's consequential, obviously, because the Warriors are 33-29. They're only 1 game back of the Mavs in the loss column. They have the easiest schedule left in the Western Conference, to the point that the projection systems I trust the most give them a much better chance than a significantly better chance than the Lakers at getting out of the 9-10 into the 7-8. They have 2 games against the Spurs coming up that those projection systems are probably banking as wins. Needless to say, even with Andrew Wiggins back, not playing very much, but back, and Steve Kerr having settled, I think, on his rotation that does not include Dario Saric or Kevon Looney, at this point anyway, with Trace Jackson Davis taking the backup 5 minutes, their margin for error is nothing. And we can keep talking about these 2 teams. They're still stuck in the 9-10 bracket. Which one is going to make a longer playoff run? One of them ain't going to make a long play-in run unless things change. And so that injury is a huge deal. Let's talk about Cat.
Yeah.
Boy, oh boy. This dude is a Wolves lifer. 9 years on this sad sack team.
Yeah.
You lived through general soreness, the practice revolt, the Tibbs era, losing, Ricky Rubio injuries, the whole thing. Lived through all of it. It's the best team they've had since Kevin Garnett in his prime. They're number 1 in the West still after an incredible win last night over Indiana, punctuated by Anthony Edwards with a Ja Morant-like block where he's like, is he going to just fly up into the upper deck? Like, what's happening here? On Aaron Nesmith. You just have to knock on wood that this team and this guy, I know people don't like Cat, like his there's just something about him that people don't
it's
like.
crazy. It's funny. And you think like, oh my God, the guy's always hurt. I mean, when he came into the league, he played 3 years in a row of 82 games straight. His 4th year was 77. And I know there was there was like kind of those 2 book in the middle there years where he had only missed 1 game this year for personal reasons. Like, so it's not like he's an injury plagued guy. Certainly there's some the wear and tear. And the other thing too is that this is first surgery. This is the first surgery for this guy in the NBA here. So yeah, you got, as you said, you got to feel for this guy as far as this is their best team they've had in 20, I don't know, 30 years almost.
Since well, 20 years ago
Or
they made
20
the
years,
conference
yeah.
finals with KG. Uh, Look, and you just want them to be able to see it through with this team, and you want Cat to be able to see it through because you know better than anyone what the numbers are money
Oh,
wise
I know.
after the
Oh,
season.
and here, I mean, here's the other thing. When I'm watching Anthony Edwards close this game with his play offensively and then the block, and I'm thinking, man, that's a $41 million block there. Because what's going to happen is that this is going to be a little bit of a process of elimination here where now Karl-Anthony Towns will not be eligible for all NBA because he will not meet the 65 game criteria. Joel Embiid is not eligible. There's a Jimmy Butler's not eligible. It's going to be interesting who's left, who's going to be
By
eligible.
the way, this was the unintended consequences that they did not think hard enough about with this 65 game limit, and why
Yeah.
I've said I don't want that limit for at least third team All NBA,
Yeah.
because what's going to happen is the older guys are not going to meet the threshold, and you're going to
Hmm.
have these young guys who everyone agrees. And I'm not saying this about Anthony Edwards, who's
Yeah.
unbelievable, but there are going to be younger guys who make All NBA almost by default. Everyone agrees they're not supermax players. They're going to
Yeah.
get the supermax, and people are going to be like, "Wait, how did this happen? Why did this
Yeah.
guy make All NBA over Kevin Durant? Oh, Kevin Durant played 61 games. Oh well."
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's a $41 million difference between making all NBA and not, and that's a plus $7 million payroll. And we know about their finances going into next year, right? As far as where they are with the apron, where they are with, they certainly just extended Conley. Pat's Supermax starts year one is next year. I mean, you go from basically 34 million to $50 million here. So there's a lot of pressure on this organization to, um, the days of just getting into the playoffs are over. Like, to advance here, and it's gonna be interesting. Now, the Naz Reid, Rudy Gobert numbers have been good. Like those two guys together have been good. What I'm concerned about also is the Monty Morris injury. He leaves last night, Thursday night with a strained hamstring here. You saw a lot of Nikhil Alexander Walker down the stretch here. You saw, certainly they started Kyle Anderson with Gobert. You had him run point a little bit at the end, played Conley off the ball. Conley had a big shot, which I thought was a three, and they never even went back to like review it. But they're on the road. They were in Indiana. They're on the road in 5 games. They got a 5 game trip, 2 of them with Clips, Lakers. They get 2 with Utah, which certainly in Utah could help. But I don't, as we talked about before, I don't see them going out of it. They're not going to fall out of the top 4. It's just a matter of kind of where they're going to be.
And look, Towns again, for whatever reason, Towns is one of those players that people kind of make fun of sometimes, and like some of his turnovers and drives to the rim are a little bit awkward and stilted and like klutzy almost for a guy who's an incredible athlete. And as he will tell you, Bobby, the greatest shooting big man maybe in NBA history. It's him or Dirk. That's it. I'm still defaulting to Dirk just because you know why? That dude did it all in the playoffs. And like
Yeah.
that's what this was going to be for Cat.
Yeah.
This playoff run, whether 1, 2, 3 seed, whatever, every arc of his career coalesced here. This was going to be, and maybe still will be, hopefully still will be, the first time he has ever faced real postseason pressure. And this is a guy whose postseason track record until the last 3 games of that Nugget series last year was filled with like, wait, he had 9 points and didn't touch the ball in the whole second half, it felt like, and 7 turnovers and fouled out. And like, that's what his postseason track record has been. Some exceptions, and then a nice run toward the end of that series. This is going to be his first time facing pressure, facing expectations. And, this Gobert trade where they went all in for Gobert and everybody, including me, panned it. And I would still pan it. I think they overpaid wildly, despite the fact that they've been incredible this year. That trade was a statement of we don't think we can win big with Towns as a center. We just don't think that we can defend well enough ever, as incredible as we are offensively with him stretching the floor and opening it up for everybody. Our defense will just never be good enough. We can't find easily, because there's like 4 of them, a big man who can both protect the rim and shoot, so that Cat can remain sort of versatile offensively inside out. Let's go get the best defensive player we can get Gobert. Cat becomes at a 4 75% of the time, which makes him less effective offensively because his stretchiness has a little bit less value. And his drives to the basket, he's often driving or posting up in a crowd of people because Gobert and his guy are right there. Meanwhile, Anthony Edwards ascends towards superstardom and becomes the number 1 option on the team. Cat is often relegated to being a spot up guy. It just so happens that he's incredible at that and can still spot up and drive and pick spots. And then when Naz Reid comes in with Cat, he can post up more because Naz is more of a perimeter threat. Like, if the trade was made because of his limitations, one of the reasons that it has succeeded and borne fruit this year is because of his strengths, because of his adaptability. And I don't think he's received enough credit for that kind of adaptation across the board, changing his game, changing his spot in the pecking order, working with Gobert, overthrowing sometimes lobs to Gobert to make him feel more involved in the offense. And Gobert's had a very good offensive season this year. And look, they have already, one of the benefits of a strange double center trade like this is they have a template now to fall back on right away. That's easy. It's just spread, pick and roll with Gobert. Our defense stays the same because he's the most important defensive player on the team. We still have McDaniels. We still have Ant. The 3 keystones to our defense are still here. Offense in a lot of ways becomes simpler, right? Like spread, pick and roll, just spam it. That's what it is. We have Naz Reid coming off the bench. Kyle Anderson can come in and start. And if you look at the numbers for the season, they are plus, I think, 13 per 100 possessions with Ant and Rudy and no Cat, according to Cleaning the Glass, in about 500 some minutes. I think that's what it is. And that would make you think, well, that template works. We're going to be fine. To some degree, that will end up being, true for portions of games, but that's 500 whatever minutes I said. Everyone now is stretched thinner. Who is the offense running through when Anthony Edwards is on the bench? How crippling is the slow-mo Gobert combination in terms of your spacing when it's now starting games against starting level defenses? And just the release valve, the oxygen of Cat shooting and his ability to create a shot with 5 seconds left on a shot clock is just gone. And also what's gone, and this is important for winning multiple playoff rounds, and that's the goal here, and this is why I've been skeptical of or I keep saying the Lakers need to show me more consistency before we start talking about any kind of playoff run, because every game is so hard for the Lakers. Every win is so hard. To win multiple playoff rounds, you need some easy ones. You need just a couple of nights where oh, we got that, we can't lose. And one of those nights for Minnesota is the night when Cat shoots 6 of 9 from 3, and your ceiling goes like this, way up to the sky, and you can't lose. I don't think, no matter what the numbers say, and I just read them off, I know they're deep. I know they're talented. I know they have this template to fall back on. I think they could win a round without Karl Towns if the matchup is right. And again, we don't know when he's coming back. We don't know what early in the playoffs means. We don't know what he'll look like when he comes back. I think they could win a round without him, or with 75% Towns sort of getting his way back into game shape or whatever. I don't think they can win 2. Not in the West, not against the Clippers, the Thunder. I think that's the line of demarcation for me. And it matters for all the other teams in the West at the top. It matters for Denver because this is a matchup that's given them problems before. The way they can put Cat on Jokic and Gobert on Gordon. Who guards Jokic now? You're going to put a smaller guy on him? Can't do that. You probably have to put Gobert on him and then live with, if that ends up being a matchup that Cat can't play in. And then the offseason is what it is, man. If they flame out in round 1 or something, the money is what it is. The teams who are interested in Towns are going to start calling again.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the money, as you said, the money is what it is, and they knew that when they gave Conley that extension here. I think as you mentioned, when Edwards comes out of the game, who's the offense running through it's a small sample, but the starting lineup they rolled out last night, 100 points per possession. That's not, this it certainly slows down here. Now, defensively, defensively, it's at a high level. In the lineup, the Gobert, Reed, Alexander Walker, Kyle Anderson, Anthony Edwards lineup. Like, if you're looking for some pop, that's your lineup, right? Like, that's what you're gonna put out there here. But you are thin now. Your bench, besides Reed and Anderson, now you have everyone gets pushed up a spot, right? Anderson gets pushed up a spot. The Reed, minutes probably increase a little bit here. And basically, I think Edwards has played 3 games with that cat. He's averaging 37 points a game. So he's going to have to be the best player on the court. I mean, that's the reality of it here for, certainly from an offensive standpoint. 16 points in the fourth. 3 big money shots at the end. 3 big money shots. The 3, the drive, the free throw line, extending jumper, and then certainly the block at the end. So he's going to have to be your money player.
Saddle up, as Taylor Jenkins said earlier in the season. Saddle up. If you're Anthony Edwards, they're going to need you every game. Let's go rapid fire for a few things. You told me last night when we were planning this set, I'm going to have my eye on Dallas.
Yeah.
I'm going to have my eye on the Dallas game. Dallas comes back to beat Miami in Dallas, snapping a little bit of a losing streak, including some problematic losses to the Sixers, and the Pacers blew them out. And then, of course, the Max Strus half-court heave game happened at their expense. Why were you watching Dallas, and what did you see from them last night? They beat the Heat by 6, 35 for Doncic, just a ho-hum 35. Notably, multiple changes in the starting 5 for the Mavs. Gafford in, Lively out, Jones Jr. in, Green out. Not sure how sustainable that is, but it tells you how worried they were about their team.
Yeah, for me, certainly defensively, they had before last night have not been good at all. I think since the All-Star break, they're 30th in defensive efficiency, 4th in offense. So there is a gap here. You mentioned they start Gafford. They traded a first for him. They traded a first for PJ Washington. I came on the podcast with you, and I like the trade, right? I like that. And I think if you're expecting PJ Washington to be your 3rd best player, I think you've got fool's gold there. I really do.
Someone has to be the 3rd best player.
I don't know. You know who it is right now? Who was last night? Dante Exum.
He was monstrous down the stretch.
So here's what they closed with: Luka, Kyrie, Exum, Kleber, and Lively. I want more Lively minutes. I know you traded a first for Gafford. I don't. Listen, does Daniel Gafford have to play 6 minutes a game? No. I think there's a balancing act, but I want more Lively minutes. I want more Lively minutes at the end. 1 for 4 guarding Bam last night. I thought he gave him fits. Made a huge offensive rebound that turned into an Exum 3 in a corner. So I think Jason Kidd's going to try to tinker. You might see this lineup down the stretch. This might be your group, which has not played. I was looking and cleaning the glass. I'm like, has this group played before together here? And it's like, yeah, it comes up with no. So I think that's what you might see here.
That 3 you mentioned. Well, there was maybe it was a different one. Exum hit a monster 3 late in the game.
Yeah.
There was a corner 3 they got off an offensive rebound where it was Kleber who tipped it out to Lively, who made like an instant read to, I believe, Kyrie in the left corner.
Yep.
Lively's a really good passer.
Yep.
Kleber is an interesting piece for them because, you can tell they go back and forth of, we traded all this stuff for Gafford. Like, do we need to just play him 25 minutes a game and Lively 23 minutes a game and Kleber's got to be a full-time 4? Or do we really lean back into Kleber at the 5 and shooting everywhere? And versatility is nice. It just feels like they're still figuring out the balance of that, which is fine. Like, I think it's a better problem to have than not. Exum looked like he was going to become a starter for them, frankly, before he got injured again. Feels like one of those injuries that kind of derailed the season. Maybe last night is like, okay, this guy's back in the core rotation. I don't know. Like, the losses were bad. The defense was bad. The trades were risky. I liked them less than you did when we did that podcast. and yet I just wasn't that worried about it. They had banked nice wins against Oklahoma City and Phoenix since the trade. And I just kind of trust Luka to find a way to be a problem at least. Now, being a problem in the first round is not what you trade all this stuff to be, and we just got to see it. And right now they're eighth, and a huge week for the Kings so far to stabilize themselves with 2 straight wins. Squeaked one out against the Spurs.
That's my shout out team.
Okay, let's do the shout out team. Go ahead. I said pick a random team you want to shout out that we don't get to talk about as much.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you squeak out a win, which I thought they were going to lose last night with a victor-less San Antonio team by 2. You had a great win in LA against the Lakers, where you come back from 19 down.
You come back from 19 down in the first half and take a 15-point lead like into the third quarter. Like they came back in a blink in that game.
You had a bad loss against Chicago, who is your team, your shout out team. The Minnesota win last, I think Friday, was Malik Monk game. I'm concerned with Sacramento, and certainly will be an offseason thing. Is the question is that, how do they go from good to great? How has this roster, if it has, has it plateaued? Right? Have we seen, is this the best we are going to see? Is there another gear for this group? Because here's a team that, you're going to have a decision in the offseason. Malik Monk is basically, he's setting a nice price tag for him. You can only pay him $17 million because of early bird. So you basically might have to choose between him and Kevin Huerter, who's Malik Monk is finishing games for you. And he's his minutes, the Mitchell, the Murray, the Fox Monk minutes have been okay, not terrific here.
They're like -7 per 100 possessions with Fox, Monk, Sabonis, mostly because it's just defensively challenged. They're a bottom 3 level defense with those 3 on the floor, and that just is maybe intractable.
Yeah, so we'll learn a lot when we get to mid-April. I liked what they did in the offseason. I'm a big fan on continuity, right? I but at the end of the day, could you have taken some of that Sabonis renegotiation money and said, hey, we got a max contract for you in the offseason, right? Just hold on. We got 19 million we're going to use to go get something else. But instead you gave it to Sabonis and you renegotiated, and you really didn't do much, as far as upgrading the roster. You stayed pat, which is fine. And you're waiting for a big Keegan Murray jump. And he's been good. He goes from 10 to 15 points.
He's slowed down a little in the last month. There have been few popping Keegan Murray games. Fewer.
But I get nervous. I'm watching the Minnesota game, I think last Friday night, and it's basically it's Malik Monk, right? Everyone was it was hot potato, right? Who wants no, Malik Monk, I'm gonna be the guy on an island by myself. I'm going to win this game here. And so I'm a little concerned where Sacramento goes. They're in the playing mix, right? They're in the playing mix. They can get in the top 6, certainly. If you stretch out a couple good games here. But that step from going good to great is not, it's hard. It's really hard. It's like Indiana. Indiana's going to face this realization down the road. Going from a good team, great feel-good story, right? Halliburton's been great. Their bench is awesome. But what's the next step there? And that's always the hard thing.
Yeah, I've talked a lot about the Kings. I was fine with them standing pat.
Yep.
And I just didn't think they found a deal that made any sense for them. And I think that's okay. I think it's okay for them to be just okay about as, somewhat close to where they were last year record-wise, and probably not do as well in the playoffs if they even make the playoffs. I think that's okay. In the West, Fox has started to pop a little bit lately. They just have questions to answer, and that's fine given the trend lines still point up. By the way, trivia question: who has the 3rd best point differential in the Western Conference?
New Orleans,
who we never talk about, and that we never talk. We talk about Zion a lot. I said earlier this week, they're sitting pretty.
Yeah.
Their schedule is good.
Yep.
They're watching teams around them take injuries. They're 5th, and they have, according to our projection system, like a 90-something% chance of being a top six, of being a playoff team.
Yeah.
Which would be a massive victory for them, given
Yes.
how much time members of their big three have missed, how they've had to figure out the fit, sometimes awkwardly, sometimes on the fly. Trey Murphy missed a bunch of games. He's starting to pop. He had a monster game
Yeah.
earlier this week, starting to get in rhythm. That's a dangerous,
Yep.
strange, fascinating team. Just put a pin in it. Like Clippers Pelicans first round series would be really, really interesting. The Pelicans had a landmark win for them at the Clippers last month.
How about Minnesota? How about Minnesota, New Orleans? If somehow Minnesota falls to 4,
I'm not ready to. I don't want to depress Minnesota fans. I don't want Crunch the Wolf to get to. By the way, anyway, I saw Crunch. I think Crunch had a birthday party. I have someone who sends me every time, a scout that I will not name, knows how much I love mascots, and particularly inflatable mascots, will send me every time he's at a game where there's a mascot birthday party. When all the mascots come, like visiting mascots come.
Yeah.
And there was one where I think Crunch had some kind of party, and he sent me a screenshot of Crunch and Benny the Bull were like having an American Gladiators level like joust contest. Like they had the jousting things. And I asked him who won, and he said it was Crunch's birthday. Who do you think won? It was Crunch. Crunch won. Benny's going to throw that one for Crunch. My shout out team, Chicago, I already mentioned. Vooch is on a run. Kobe White is on a run. DeMar is on a run.
He is a hooper, man. I don't know what's going to happen with DeMar DeRozan in the offseason. I don't know what his contract's going to be. I don't know if he's going to be in Chicago or anything, but God, give me that guy and give me, you know what you're going to get with this guy.
People forget, Bobby. People forget. I love it. People forget DeMar DeRozan's a bucket. Yep. I'm just going to go around saying that in like 10 years. Yeah, I don't know if you guys like walking to school with random parents who aren't NBA fans. I don't know. Dude, you forget, buddy. DeMar DeRozan was a bucket. Like, what do you do? What? Like, we were talking about like Dune 2. Why are you bringing that up? And my other team, Orlando's 13-3 in its last 16 games.
Yeah.
Most of them have been against dog poop teams, but they beat Cleveland without Donovan Mitchell. They beat Minnesota. They're just taking care of business. They're doing what you're supposed to do when you're a rising young team. They still have no shooting. They're still going to be a bottom 10 offense. Banchero has made a leap as a playmaker, and I think he's really improved defensively. He's just a really good all-around player. He had 10 assists the other night, and that's like not even an abnormal thing. Franz Wagner still hasn't quite found his jump shot. The guard situation is still a mess. And you know what? They keep on winning games, and they are currently 4th in the Eastern Conference. 4th, a half game up in the win column over the Knicks, a game up over the Heat. Now that whole race from 4 to 8 is going to be a mess for the rest of the season. But, you know, it's time for people to start watching the Orlando Magic, because they might be playing your favorite team in a first round playoff series that's going to be on NBA TV, unless it's like, you know, the Celtics or something. And even then, maybe they'll be the NBA TV team.
They just find ways to win. I mean, they're down double digits in Washington the other night. They get huge production off the bench with Mo Wagner and Karl-Anthony. I mean, and Mo, like, I love him because he's such a he rattles your cage if you're on the other team, right? Like, there's like a lot of different things going on, but you know, there'll be a lot of other people for most improved or 6-man, but he has given them such a good lift as far as off the bench there, and Karl-Anthony hit some big shots so they're finding, besides their 2 main guys, they're finding other players to kind of, when things get ugly and when Paolo doesn't have it or Franz doesn't have it, they're finding contributions from other guys on that roster.
And I don't want to look ahead to the offseason because, again, they really would like, I love the fact that they are so hungry for playoff experience. I've said over and over, I understand that Utah made the quote unquote right decision to tank out of this season the way they did. They got good assets for it. I wish they were sitting here trying to push these teams for 10th just to get the experience, but I understand the reality of it. But the Magic are maybe the most interesting team in the offseason because they're quite good. Their guard situation is a complete blank slate. Like, Karl-Anthony's in the right spot. He's going to be a 6-man. That's fine.
Yeah.
You still need 2 starters. Anthony Black, maybe he'll be ready next season. Maybe not. Like, he's been a starter for a good chunk of this season. Like, that's not a thing yet. Gary Harris is a free agent.
Yeah.
Markelle Fultz, I believe, is going to be. Is he not guaranteed next year?
He's a free agent. Jonathan Isaac, who Listen, when Jonathan Isaac plays, is effective.
I'm
But
not giving up on Jonathan Isaac. I've
no,
seen enough this year. Like, that dude is in the conversation for single best defensive player in the NBA on a permanent
yeah,
basis when he plays. I want him on the team.
they're almost like
Fultz is not happening. Fultz is just like
they're,
they have all this. They have a bunch of trade assets. They have cap flexibility. They are a sleeping giant in the offseason.
they're almost like where Oklahoma City is, kind of like they've got this financial window, right, to go get things done because Suggs and Franz Wagner are rookie extension eligible this offseason, wouldn't kick in at 25, 26, Bancaro the following year. So there's like this window, right? Like we can go out and go get something or improve before things get, a little bit of, expensive here.
Suggs is shooting like 40% from three.
Yeah. I think he was 27 last year.
39.3%. He was 32% last year, 21% as a rookie. That like 21% as a rookie. 2 years later, 39% on 5 attempts a game.
Yep.
That is remarkable. We'll see if it's real. He's often comped to Marcus Smart as sort of this hybrid
that's
guard.
the comp. Like when I'm starting to do some offseason stuff, that's the comp, right?
Marcus
like
Smart never shot 39% on threes in a season. I don't think Marcus Smart shot 37% on threes in a season. Like, if that's real, that's a big deal. I want to end with this. I'm springing this on you. I'm sorry, because it just got on my mind. You have seen, no doubt, Bobby, the commentary from the last 2 weeks about Victor Wembanyama being like a little impatient, like the Spurs are going to have to accelerate this timetable. Brian Windhorst, who knows Victor, said on TV, like he wants, when we were talking about Thunder Spurs, Victor wants that gap to be narrower between those two teams next season. Well, right now it's the gap between it's like a 30-win gap or something like that. Like, you don't see those gaps narrowed that much in one offseason. And I think that has been wrongly taken in other corners of the media, not by Brian, not from Brian, but by others who have taken it and then sort of implied that the Spurs are on the clock, that the Spurs are under pressure with the sort of Damocles unsaid, because no one will, a couple of people have come out and said it, most won't, that, okay, well, he could demand a trade out of there. He could be the guy to decline to take the qualifying offer. Where the Spurs are looking at that and being like, where's this coming from? Like, yes,
can we at least just get through the year?
He's a rookie. He wants to win. That's true. He would like the team to be better. That's true. He would like the team to make moves this offseason, I'm sure, like any good player, to give him more players who can pass him the ball in functional ways. That is so far removed from like, the Spurs are on the clock with Victor Wembanyama. He's like stoked to be on the Spurs. He was so happy to be on the Spurs. And here's what I really mean. And I'm interested in your perspective on this. If he is impatient, I'm not taking that as a threat. If I'm the Spurs, I'm taking it as an opportunity. You know why? Because this dude is so goddamn good already that he's actually ready to win, whether we want to or not. We're picking in the lottery this year. They might get the Raptors pick this year, which would be in the top 10, although it's starting to go, the Raptors are the 7th worst record in the league. It's top 6 protected. Memphis is coming. Memphis is the next in line that they've got to quote unquote pass. Memphis, who just plays a different slew of random Mad Libs NBA players every night. Vince Williams Jr., shout out, like him. They're going to get that pick. They have Charlotte picks. They have swaps. They have a million things.
They potentially, I mean, here's the other thing too, like
Atlanta picks.
Yeah, they could have 5 first-round picks in 2025.
Here's my point.
In a good draft.
This is what happens with generational superstars. It happened with LeBron James. It happened with Anthony Davis. And Anthony Davis is not quite, I don't think, become at the level of these players, though he was regarded almost that way. You become so good so fast that it doesn't even really matter what you want or how patient you may or may not want to be, or if there's any dissonance between how you'd like to build the team and how your best player would like to build the team. They are not going to leave you a choice. You are going to develop on their timetable because they're going to drag your ass there. this will be maybe the last year the Spurs ever get a high lottery pick in the Victor Wembanyama era. They might get 2, courtesy of Toronto. That's just how it goes. You don't get these infinite bites at the apple because these guys make your team too good to do this. He is going to make their team too good to do this. Bobby, my favorite stat of the year, a stat that is literally unbelievable. The Spurs are, what is their record? 13-50. 13-50. 37 games under 500. Their scoring margin is -8 per game. In 625 minutes in which Victor Wembanyama has played with Trey Jones, a competent point guard, and Devin Vassell, a competent two-way wing who is passing, has ratcheted up a notch in the last month. 625 minutes for a team that is 13-50 and -8. Those three together are, in those 625 minutes, plus 154. That is bananas. The 5-man lineup of those three plus Sohan and Keldon Johnson, maybe the 5 most important players on the team, is like plus 50 in 110 minutes. The Spurs, since December 27th, again, this is a crap team, are plus 17 total with Wembanyama on the floor. They are a positive team in 2.5 months of games with Victor Wembanyama on the floor, despite being 13-50. In that stretch since December 27th, I wrote about it today, he's at like 23, 13, 4 assists, 4 blocks, 1.5 steals, 50% shooting, 38% from deep. What he's doing is not normal. Like, it's just not, like, you have to remind yourself, there's like 6 plays every game where like, oh, that's not normal. I don't think I've ever seen anybody do that. His handle's getting tighter. Like, this is not a threat to the Spurs. I've heard nobody within the Spurs say they're worried about this in any possible way other than we're kind of excited at the opportunity to see what these things can get us, to explore what guards who maybe are 3 or 4 or 5 years older than Wembanyama actually fit with our timetable, because he's going to make our timetable his timetable. I hate the way this narrative got spun into the next guy who's going to demand a trade to this team or that team. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I don't think that's what's going on. I think this is an opportunity for the Spurs because, not quietly, loudly, this dude is a winning player right now.
Listen, when you draft generational players, the clock is always ticking, right? Like, it's like, and I think this year was kind of like an experiment as far as figuring out what works and what doesn't. And you kind of rattled off a bunch of stuff as far as when you have a competent point guard and Trey Jones, and when you put Victor at the 5, and Vassell's played really well towards the end of the year here. If I was San Antonio, I would be more concerned if we had Victor and a bunch of overpriced veterans, and we're winning. We're like 24-34, and we've got no means to improve. Like, I think what you're going to see is, I think what I would do if I was Victor, and I would pop, or maybe someone else, and I would take him around when these playoffs get going here, right? Like, plant your butt there and we'll have them watch. This is the level we're going.
I mean, Brett Brown, who's now the lead assistant there, did that with Philly. He would take when he was on the process Sixers, he would take some of his young guys to games. Games.
So I'm not, am I concerned that they've won 13 games and he's going to be the first player ever to sign a qualifying offer 4 years from now? I'm not concerned about that, because I think the means are there to improve, and they realize that. They're not, our RC Buford's not dumb. I mean, I think people expect what happened with Tim Duncan, where basically, David Robinson has the injury, San Antonio drafts Duncan, and all of a sudden, vroom, that thing just takes off here. It was the reason why they got number 1 pick was because the Duncan injury. There were still parts around to take that leap here. And I think what San Antonio will have to figure out in the offseason, as you said, they could have 2 lottery picks, certainly their own. They'll have, potentially that Toronto pick. They could have 5 first in 2025 in a better draft. What do you want to do? You want to go out and throw 4 first-round picks and see if you can get Trey Young? I mean, is that what you want to do and accelerate? Excel. I mean, come on.
I'm having a meeting about that now. 4, no.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
No, they'll probably
But
pull it like, we just have our own back.
but that's like I've said before, like I'm not closing the door on that if I'm the Spurs, and I don't
Yeah.
think that door's been open or shut or anything yet. But
Sure.
I'd have a discussion about Trae Young. I think that
Yeah.
fit actually makes some sense. But I'm having a discussion about every good guard
Yep.
who's 27 and under.
Mhm.
Everyone that might be available.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to say that. Bobby
Yeah.
Marks, you got a lot of things. What else should we be looking for from you? Are you starting to get your off-season guides prepared
Oh
for
man, we're starting.
I think you can start the Wizards one
We
and
we
the
are
Pistons
starting.
one.
We've got the outline of all these 10 lottery teams. I know
Haven't the Wizards lost like 16 games in a row
Well, Dave
under the
McMenamin
cover
and I,
of darkness?
Dave and I know this won't make Laker fans happy, but Dave and I kind of quasi wrote a Laker offseason article midweek here on the
I
future
saw
of
that
LeBron.
LeBron. What are LeBron's options? Well, look, it's not over. It's not over. It's not over for the Lakers. Like game to game, I don't want it. It's fine. The Wizards have lost. Haven't they lost 16 games in a row?
I've
watched some of them.
And you know what? They have to be careful because they are what's 28? Is that the record? 28?
Oh, let's do it. Let's have another one flirt with it. Let's have another team do it. Look, like I've watched a decent chunk of Wizards games.
Yeah.
I'm asking the question about the streak because the result of the game is immaterial to me when I'm watching. I don't even pay attention. Like usually they're behind by 20 very quickly.
Yeah.
But I'm just watching for like, how does Koulibaly look? How does Corey Kispert look? I don't, the rest is Jordan Poole like maybe starting to find his game again.
A little better.
I just don't like, I don't care about the results, but I do believe they're on a long. All right. Bobby Marks, off-season guides coming. What else? LeBron's story with Dave McMenamin.
That's
what
it.
Else?
We got KP and I got rookie rankings coming up soon here.
You and Porzingis are you gonna sit down with Porzingis and rank the rookies?
The other KP.
All right, Bobby Marks, always a pleasure. Thank you, sir, for breaking down this game and many other things with me. I'll see you around the block.
Thanks, Zach.
It's March, and that means it's tax season. You need an accountant you can trust. Doing your own taxes risks making bad mistakes, even leaving money on the table. Shady accountants who cut corners can get you in trouble. That's why you need me, Dean Wade. When I'm not draining threes for the Cleveland Cavaliers and ending someone's long winning streak, I'm here to serve all your accounting needs. Here at Dean Wade Accounting, we file taxes, prepare trusts, and help set aside money for your children's education. We do it all.
That's Dean Wade for all your accounting needs. Dean Wade. Dean Wade. And look at this. We have the real Dean Wade, fresh off scoring 20 points against the Boston Celtics in the fourth quarter, 11-game winning streak. Who cares? Best point differential in the NBA since the Warriors in 2017, and even better than them. Who cares? Donovan Mitchell hurt. We kind of care, but who cares for that particular game? Dean Wade, that must have been an all-time moment for you. Thank you for being a good sport, and thank you for all your accounting work that you do for the residents of Greater Cleveland.
Thank you.
How was that game? What's your life like after a game like that?
I mean, that game was crazy. It really was. The atmosphere, Rocket Mortgage was jumping. I'm not sure the last time I heard it that loud. And obviously, hitting shots and the comeback was a big help in that. But no, that game was unbelievable. I've never, always dreamed of being in situations like that, when you're little in the driveway. But to actually experience that, I mean, it was amazing.
You have been an underrated 3-and-D player in my eyes for a long time. That's why the Dean Wade jingle exists. That's why your shoulder injury last year I thought was like a major bummer for the Cavs. They needed you. They needed your skill set. But all right, so you hit 5 threes. You're going crazy in the fourth quarter. You win the game on a putback dunk. And it's a dunk where the shot, I think it was a Darius Garland shot, doesn't hit the rim. It just goes backboard right to you. Drew Holiday does not box you out. Rare slip up by Drew Holiday. When did you realize, like, I have a chance at this, and like the trajectory of the ball is going to be this, where it's not going to hit the rim, it's going to come like ping right off the glass to me?
I just know that those last second shots or the game winning shots. I've done it. As a defender, being in the situations, everyone just turns and watches. They don't really box out, and that's like the one thing that was going through my mind is like I have a chance if he misses, I have a chance because everyone's going to be so focused on him and his shot that they're not going to be worried about boxing out too much. And that was the only thing I thought of when I crashed. And luckily, DG missed it at a decent angle and it came off, and I just happened to be right there. But that was just the only thing going through my mind is the defense has their head turned. I think I get in there and make something happen.
You were up there, by the way. Your face is like at the rim. Have you watched the replay of this?
I saw it once. I think it was just the adrenaline. I usually don't get that high.
But then you're calm. You're like jogging back on defense, focused. Is that just a player thing? Like, I know the games. If that were me and I did that, I would be out of my mind. But you're just jogging back, like looking around for who to guard. Is that just like, the game's going on, like we can't stop?
I knew there was, I think there was 18 seconds left. They got the best offense in the NBA, and great players. So my main concern after that was like, man, we got to get a stop. We have to get a stop right now. And I was hyped. I was pretty hyped up, internally, but I knew that there was we had to get one more stop. That's all we had to do. And so I just didn't want to celebrate too early.
Now, I knew that you were from Kansas, and we're going to talk about Kansas in a couple minutes. But I did not know, maybe I should have just assumed that you are a lifelong Kansas City Chiefs fan. And you did this with the Kelsey brothers sitting courtside, and you're celebrating afterwards with Travis Kelce wearing a Cavs jersey. Suddenly, he's like the most famous athlete in the world, basically. You're a Chiefs fan. The Chiefs just won the Super Bowl in overtime. Even a dope like me who never watched football watched that game, was like, this is an awesome game. Just that must have been crazy.
Yeah, it really was. Obviously I grew up in Kansas, been a Chiefs fan for my whole life. And, you see what, Travis Kelce's done the past few years and the numbers he's putting up. And, just to have him, because I've never met him before until after the game, but just having him there for the game and playing like that. I mean, it was a pretty surreal moment. Even after the game, I went to talk to him, and I have no idea what I said to him. Literally don't know what he said to me. I had no idea. I was like, blacked out.
Did you get his number? Did you exchange cell phone numbers?
No, we didn't. I think I took too long after the game to talk to him in the locker room. I had to go do some things, treatment and media, and he waited for me for a little bit, and I took too long, and so we didn't get to do any of that.
My number one priority in your shoes after the game would be, this is my chance to get in the entourage. Like, I just want to be part of this. I want to be on the private jets. I want to be in the VIP rooms. Like, you had a shot, and maybe you still have a shot. It's not over. Let's talk. I want to ask you a couple quick questions, and you got to go. But I was given a little background on your pre-draft workout and how you ended up with the Cavs, and it's kind of a crazy story of travel mishaps and last-minute decisions, and apparently a dunk in Cleveland that brought the house down for at least one critical observer of their, I guess, brain trust. I don't know what we'll call him, but tell the people, like, you end up being a second-round pick for the Cavs, kind of last minute. Tell people what that process is like, because people think of the green room and the guys that are flown into New York and they dress in the suits and they get the jewelry. People don't think of this kind of draft story so often.
Yeah, so I actually was I had my last workout was in Detroit, and it was 2 days. I think it was 2 days before the draft, and so I did that workout, and I was supposed to go home and be off for the day before, and then obviously the draft and see where you fall and all that stuff. But my agents called me and they're like, man, Cleveland really wants you to come for a workout. They're having one tomorrow. Can you fly from Detroit after your workout from Detroit to Cleveland and then wake up the next day and do your workout? Well, my flight from Detroit got canceled. So I stayed in the airport all night, took the 6 a.m. flight from Detroit to Cleveland. Finally got to Cleveland, got picked up. They're like, you want to go back to the hotel for a 20-minute nap before this workout? And I was like, sure. I dropped my bags off at the hotel. And so I'm running off like 3 hours of sleep. They picked me up. I didn't even take a nap, just went straight to it. And I was pretty, at the time I was just tired to all the workouts, kind of stacked up because my senior year, I broke it. And so all my workouts are pretty stacked up with each other. And so I get to Cleveland, and I'm just, won't lie to you, I was ready to go home, ready to do this workout, but I was ready to go home and see my family. And luckily I just had a great workout. I think like the first play when we were scrimmaging, I had a dunk in front of everyone. I think everyone was like laughing and stuff. So it was a good experience. And that's kind of how I got to Cleveland.
And I misspoke, not a second-round pick. You were projected perhaps second-round pick. You ended up being a two-way with the Cavs. Mm-hmm. I heard Larry Nance was in the stands, and when you did this dunk, I don't know. So is it a 5-on-5? This is not a 1-on-0. You're coming in and you're playing real basketball.
Yeah, I think it was actually 3-on-3 at the time. Because like pre-draft workouts, you do like 1-on-1s, and then you do 3-on-3s, 2-on-2. You just whatever the team wants you to do. Yeah, Larry, I think Larry was working out after this workout, and so he was kind of sitting on the sidelines watching. And yeah, I had a dunk, and he stood up, and he's like, "Who's this white guy?" And I was like, "Yeah." So.
And now you're on the Cleveland Cavaliers. You've been a starter sometimes, a reserve sometimes, but you did not really play in the playoffs last year because you had this shoulder surgery halfway through. Did you have surgery in the season last year? Or
No,
no, you
I
didn't.
didn't have surgery yet. Just
But there was like some lingering issue, right?
yeah, I think I missed like 23 games. And still to this day, my shoulder's not as strong as it used to be. There's definitely some weakness in the shoulder still, but it's taken forever to finally come back to it. So
how hard was it to watch that series against the Knicks, which obviously kind of doesn't go your way, and almost in like a shocking, decisive kind of way? You're not playing, the team just doesn't, for whatever reason, the matchup's bad, its series doesn't go well. How hard was that? And like in the aftermath of that, as the team kind of breaks for the summer, what's on your mind? What kind of discussions are you having with your teammates who maybe did play in that series about like, how can we come back from this?
yeah, I mean, so the series, I mean, it's tough to watch, your team and not be able to do anything about it. It was a tough matchup for us. And obviously everyone saw what happened during the series, but when we went to the off season, everyone's just talking, we need to get stronger. This experience was good. The playoff experience was good for us, but we'd like to obviously would have gone longer, but it didn't. And I think our main focus was just to get back and battle, be a stronger, more physical team. Especially the last day before everyone left, we all kind of met and talked about how we need to be more physical. Everyone needs to get in the weight room and then just take everything, this whole summer, just do everything with a little chip on your shoulder. I think everyone definitely did that, and we came back, and obviously we added a few more pieces as well, so that helps. But everyone came back, and it was super motivated.
Yeah, you've added a lot of shooting, and that has helped a lot. Evan Mobley sprained his ankle. He's going to be out again for a little while. We don't quite know how much time, hopefully not too much, but that's kind of been the story of your season, is that Evan Mobley's been out, Darius Garland's been out, and in their absence, you guys kind of developed this identity of tons of shooting, tons of ball movement, tons of pace. Then they come back, and particularly Evan comes back, and you're like, all right, now we have to sort of mix that, take the best elements of that, mix it in with the best elements of what the Evan Jarrett combination brings defensively and size. Now Evan's gone out again. You can kind of pivot back to that previous identity. Is that hard to do as a team, to kind of go back and forth like that? Like what, and sort of describe that process for people.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely has its differences, difficulties, however you want to say it. But we got the guys we have on our, when those guys got hurt, I mean, the people that stepped up, the way Max, George, Don, all those guys are playing, and everyone was so happy for each other. Like George said at one time, he's like, I could care less if I scored 2 points or 25 points. I'm just happy that the way the ball's moving, everyone's touching the ball, being involved. That was the only way, that's the way we were playing, and I think that was like the biggest things. Everyone just stepped up and played for each other during that time. And but it is difficult, when you start adding people or you lose a couple people, it's difficult to transition, into just who's playing and how they're going to play together. And we had that stretch where it was just, all of us 8 guys, and we were playing well. And then when you add people back, it's tough to, minutes are obviously going to go down for people, and it's tough to get in rhythm. But overall, I think you had those pieces back, Evan, DG, they're so explosive offensively, and the things that Evan does on defense is you can't replace. And so adding those pieces back were big for us. We had a few little lapses here and there right after they got back, just trying to wrinkle or, smooth out some wrinkles here and there. But, I think the biggest thing, when those guys, it's the NBA, someone's going to get hurt, it plays so many games. Somebody's bound to get hurt. You just got to be ready, and I think that's the biggest thing. Is our team was just always ready. The next man up was always, Sam Merrill got in there first couple games and lit it up, and he was always, prepared, ready. He works out every day, like he's going to play 30 minutes, even though some games he has a DNP, and the next game he comes in and hits 7 threes. So it really is like the next man up mentality, and I think we really embrace that. And it's been working for us so far this season. Hopefully we get back to it.
Is Donovan being out, does that almost feel like a different kind of absence? Because he was the centerpiece of everything when Darius and Evan were out. Now he's out for, hopefully just a couple more games. How is that a different kind of thing? Like all of a sudden the guy who's handling the ball most of the time is gone, or is it just another like, all right, we got to shapeshift again?
Yeah, I mean, it's Donovan All-Star. I mean, he's the things he does on the basketball floor for us is you can't be replaced. But we got to step up. Somebody got to step up and fill the shoes a little bit. We got to do it as a collective group because no one person's going to replace what Donovan brings to this team and what he was doing during that stretch. I mean, he was amazing. He really was. He was carrying us. And missing with him out, it sucks. We're definitely going to miss him. But everyone's going to kind of step up and play together more. And you literally cannot replace what he's done for us. And we're hoping he comes back soon, but until then the game's still got to be played, and we got to people got to step up.
I just hope we get like 10 games of you guys healthy before the playoffs. Like this is what the rotation could look like. This is the right mix and all that. Do you guys have shooting contests? The rare times you get to practice and have shoot arounds, do you have shooting contests? And can anyone touch Merrill in these shooting contests if they exist?
Yeah, we've had a couple shooting contests. Luckily I was on Sam's team a couple times, and nobody's touching Sam. Nobody. Sam come in there and might hit 45 in a row, and it's the most impressive thing to watch him shoot.
And he gets them up in games too. I mean, he is out there to shoot, and he will shoot. He doesn't need a lot of space.
Yeah, absolutely. He's unconscious, man. It's awesome.
Last question, and this is a very important question. I have been told I might need to change my summer 4th of July plans, because apparently you put on a fireworks show in Kansas of some kind where there's perhaps some adult beverages and some pickup trucks. Like I need to know all about this because I want to go.
Yeah. So my dad's favorite holiday is 4th of July. He does it big, man. We go to my uncle's house. He kind of lives out in the country a little bit, and there's so many people that just show up. My whole family comes. We start at like 2 in the afternoon. We have food and we all just hang out until the night. And then my dad sends all of us, the kids, with all the fireworks. We go set them up during the day, and my dad sits in the garage, just hangs out. And then right when it gets dark, we start lighting them off, and it probably lasts 45 minutes to an hour. But it's pretty fun, man. It's a great time to see all my family. I don't get to sit down and have too many holidays with all my family. So 4th of July is the one I look forward to. And man, it is a good time for sure.
So this is at the house, like at your house on this, like, is it a neighborhood thing? Like we have one there's a family in our neighborhood who like at an intersection just shuts it down and lights off fireworks. Or is it in the yard? What are we talking about here?
So my uncle he probably lives like a mile outside of the nearest town, and he has a huge front yard, like huge. And we do it literally from the road to his front yard all the way up to his house. It's probably like 200 yards, and we just like the whole thing is just fireworks, and it's pretty impressive, man. It's fun.
I like it. I got to come. All right, Dean Wade, you got to actually go play for an NBA basketball team. You're coming off a back-to-back. We appreciate the time, and congrats on that Celtics win. Congrats on a great season, and hope to see you guys make a nice long playoff run. Dean Wade, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.